Hi, this is Dr. Bosch, and I wanted to talk to you about the research presentation that you'll be doing for Bio 202. I'll take things just one step at a time. Um, First of all, the research project is based on a disease or disorder in the systems that we'll be studying in Bio 202. We call these diseases or disorders homeostatic imbalances. So the first thing you have to do is choose one of these topics and let me know which one you want, and then email that to me by Monday, which is the 1st of June. Now, there are many choices on this sheet, which is in the module on the research project in Canvas. So these are all diseases, the endocrine system, of the blood, cardiovascular system, lymphatic or immune, respiratory, digestive. So let's say you want to do dyspepsia, you could choose that. Urinary, reproductive. I'd like all the students to have a different one. So I will do this first come, first serve when you decide on a topic. So just let me know as soon as you can. The second thing you need to decide is if you want to do this with a partner. You can have up to 2 people in a group. So you and a partner doing the same presentation. If you know someone in the class, that is helpful because you can both be working on it and have different ideas and that sort of thing. If you don't know anyone in the class or have a strange schedule or have no way of working with someone because of social distancing, you can do it by yourself. In the past, I'd say about half of my students do this as a pair and about half do it by themselves. So number one, decide on a topic. Number two, decide if you want to do it by yourself or with someone else in the class. Now this sheet has many ideas for homeostatic imbalances, but if you know of another one that falls under one of the topics we study, feel free to study that one. Just let me know, run it by me. What you have to do for this project is very specific. And there's a handout again in the module on the research presentation telling you exactly what to do. So you're choosing a system and a disorder. Then you are doing various parts. So to start, you do have to do some research. You need at least 4 journal articles or books as part of your research. The rest can be websites or other reputable sources. You have to do a self-review. You don't have to do a peer review because of the social distancing, but the self-review is basically you going through your presentation, making sure that everything is there that has to be there. And you want to have a title slide. You don't have to worry about a flash drive because that again is for the in-class requirement, but have a title slide with a name of the homeostatic imbalance and your name and maybe a nice picture. Let me say before I forget that really you want to have pictures on all the slides because they're helpful to help people understand what you are talking about. Now, in this case, I'll be the only one to see this, but even so, I want you to know how to make a nice presentation. Now, the first 2 sections you will not be able to Google. That is the normal anatomy of the system and the anatomy related to the disorder. So you're going to have a couple of slides where you just talk about how a particular system, let's say you did the respiratory system, how the respiratory system is supposed to be, with lungs and a healthy bronchi and trachea and everything else. You're more or less teaching about the anatomy of the respiratory system. Then you go on and say in a different slide how that anatomy is different with the disorder. So maybe the lung alveoli are destroyed, maybe are cancer cells throughout the lungs, whatever the disorder happens to be. So you're really starting out not talking about a disease, but rather what the normal anatomy of a system is. Then later you talk about how it is different with a disease, and that's all explained here. Then you go on and talk about the normal physiology. In other words, forget the disease, talk about how the respiratory system is supposed to work, with the diaphragm going up and down and the lungs expanding and everything else. And then later, how does it work with the disease? Usually this is 2 or 3 or 4 pages on anatomy, both normal and then the disorder, and then 2 or 3, sometimes 4 pages on the physiology, normal, and then how it's different with the disorder. You do have to keep these separate. If you make a slide that says anatomy and physiology, you lose all the points. Because I really want you to know that the structure of our body is different than how it works. And that's one of the main goals of this presentation, is to really understand anatomy and then really understand physiology. Hopefully you learned that in Bio 201, but briefly, anatomy are all the structure, you're describing what they're like. Physiology is the function, how it works. These 2 parts are the most challenging, but they are the key to your presentation. The other parts are pretty easy. Looking online or reading about the diagnosis of the disorder, that's kind of easy. It's only worth 5 points. The cause of disorder can be easy, sometimes not, especially if we don't actually know what caused the disorder. But please don't just write that. We don't know. You're going to write what we think might cause the disorder. So along with that might be risk factors, like what kinds of things do people do that is more likely to make them have the disease. Systems affected you will also not see by Googling. You have to just think about it. So again, if it's a lung disease, of course we'd say respiratory system, but it may affect how much oxygen is being taken in by the blood. So that'd be the cardiovascular system. It may hurt, in which case you're talking about the sensory nerves of the nervous system. It may affect the surrounding muscles. So that would be the muscular system. So it's very rare to have a disorder that doesn't affect at least 3 or 4 different systems, sometimes all the systems. So do think about that. And of course, ask me questions if you're stuck. Treatment and prevention, very easy. There'll be lots of stuff. I actually lowered the points on that because people like to go on and on about that, but I don't think it adds that much to the your understanding of the anatomy and physiology, which is what I'm hoping you'll get out of this. So I don't want you to go on and on. I just want you to talk about some of the treatments and some of the preventive ways to not get the disease. And then 30 points, this is a little subjective, but overall, how well do you seem to know the topic? And that's just up to me to see, what kind of information you have and if it's accurate and if it's deep. If you're not just parroting something online, but really seem to know what you're doing. Now, if you were in class giving this, you can tell. I'm sure if you've listened to other people give a talk, if they know what they're talking about or they don't. It's not hard to do. So it's a little harder for me when you submit this, but I will, as best as I can, try to look at whether you know the topic well. Then some of these things you don't have to worry about since you're not reading the thing, but I am looking for a deep understanding. And then anything unique that you throw in there just for fun, like maybe you found some interesting information in a research project, or maybe you looked online at a chat room about it. You don't actually have to practice this time because you're not there. So some of these things are maybe not applicable to one that you're turning in. And then technical skill, make sure your pictures are large, your diagrams are large. Make sure your font is really large and you're using just bullet points. So don't just cut and paste paragraphs or sentences. Really change it into your own words and make it shorter. So take a look at all that. And it's all there on the paper, what you need to do. Also, how you're going to do your references, which are an APA style. Yeah. And then, more extra credit at the bottom. Now, before you turn it in, make sure that you go through this self-review. It doesn't have everything I wrote in that description, but it's got a lot. So look at all these questions, make sure they're all done correctly, and then you're actually going to kind of do a review of yourself. And if you don't think you should be getting all these points, I do want you to change it so you get all the points. This is not meant to be punitive. This is meant to let you look at how the assignment is graded and make sure you got everything. I would suggest going in order. I would start with one, go to anatomy, go to physiology. Sometimes students mix this up and then they forget something. But if you know, you can even number it if you want. If you know you've done all these parts, then you'll know that at least you'll be getting most of the points. Where if you skip around a lot, you may forget causes or something. So go ahead and go in order. I would strongly suggest that. And then this has to be turned in as well. So you'll turn in the self-review the day that this is due, which won't be till the end of the semester. You'll turn in the actual presentation, and then you'll turn in a paper version of your references. The references should be on the last slide on your presentation, but I also want a paper version as well. Okay, so I hope you have fun with that. Your first job, as I said, is just to decide what you want to study and let me know, and then decide who you want to do that with. So in your Canvas site are all the papers I just talked about. I'll attach some with this as I distribute it, but there's the description. Here's your self-review. Here are the possible topics. And this is a little bit more about pairing up for with somebody else. If you do pair up, I do expect it to be a little deeper and a little longer, but not significantly different. So take a look at that. I do hope this is helpful. And when if you have any questions, definitely ask me, and I'll be glad to help you with this. We have really weeks to work on this, but it might be something you want to kind of have going on the side throughout the next 6 weeks.